Flattening out. And here we go. Welcome once again, everybody, to the show. We'll go on the Business Survival Series webinar. I am your host, Tom Stimson, and we are in episode 8 of the never-ending series of how to deal with this pandemic and how it affects your business. We are going through the rest of May with these. We're going to go into the first week of June. And then we'll see what's going to meet our needs after that. But I'm still excited to be your host and share what I've been learning with you and field your questions. So again, shout out to Avixa for helping support this and making this possible. And all the people who have recently had to start paying for Zoom know how expensive it can be, particularly if you get a large webinar package like we have, so that you can support hundreds, if not, we have over 1,300 people registered for this series. So, go check with Avixa. Make sure you've got a membership set up for yourself individually or a company membership where you're included. Take advantage of their free training that's available to you. And there we go. All right. Business Survival Exchange for Avixa. Every Friday, Avixa hosts an event. It's a Zoom event, great way to learn how Zoom can be used more effectively with a large group, breakout groups, facilitated discussion. Go check it out. You can talk more about what we talk about here today and learn how to better apply it to your business without having me get in the way of all that. I do have 3 coaching groups open that we're taking applications for. We have one owners group which just launched. We have a second owners group which hopefully will be filled up by this Friday and we can get started really quickly. I'm taking another owners group if you're interested in that. I'm looking for a general managers group. We have not quite enough folks to get that launched, but it's starting to get a little bit of traction. If we get the minimum number of people that I need to make it worthwhile, I'll get it started. I'd rather start it sooner than later. So if you're not an owner, or if you're the owner and you have an important executive or general manager that needs to be involved in strategic conversations about how to take your business forward and learn from other general managers, please join that group. And then I've had a surprising amount of requests from folks in the supply chain who would like to be in a group. And obviously I can't put you in a group of customers, as you well understand, but if you want to work on your business and work with other people who are selling into the same segment, work on their businesses, I'll put a group together for you, a B2B group. Email me about it. If I can find 5 companies that are really serious about this, then I will open it up to the public and see if we can't fill that out and get a group started. So happy to help. Happy to have everyone get outside of their bubble, have some conversations moving forward about what to do with their business. Of course, I'm still doing my 15-minute calls. If you have not taken advantage of that and you want to check your progress, make sure you're doing all the right stuff, get more detailed answers to some of the questions that you might have, I'm more than happy to do that. I learn a lot from those things, so don't hesitate to make that call. Of course, this is being recorded, as it always is, and I will have it posted within 2 hours of this finishing up here today. And we've talked about the AV Matters Facebook group. Please come out there, share your insights, help other people, ask your questions. It's a good, safe place, moderated place for you to discuss the business of AV business. Now, let's talk about some updates, what's been going on this past week. I wanted to use the chat a little bit more today, and one of the things I want to ask you right now is, if you've done a streaming event, actually, if you've done any event in the past week, share it. Let us know. Tell us what it was. Maybe tell us how big it was. Give us a little bit of hope, a little bit of excitement. I don't care if you did a $2,000 support for a webinar. Let's hear about it. What's the kind of work that you're seeing right now? Share some of your stories. If you got a gig, I know some folks who have taken some gigs they probably wouldn't have taken before. So go ahead and share that. Let us know what's going on in there. Drop that in the chat. You'll probably be helping somebody out by letting them know that those things are out there. For those of you in the US, My apologies to my international viewers here, but in the US, we still have some ongoing confusion about the PPP program. However, we did hear today, which I have not been able to verify, but probably one of you will have done it already, that the SBA has realized that they can't make part of the forgiveness for the PPP funds based on getting all of your employees back, because they're realizing that a lot of people are going to stay on their unemployment insurance. And who could blame them? It's probably the right thing to do. If you're trying to help people put groceries on the table, letting folks stay on unemployment seems like a much better way of doing that than going back to work at a reduced salary and reduced hours. So I think the SBA is starting to get a grip on what it is that they need to do to make this program successful, particularly for industries like us that have been heavily impacted very early on, knowing that there are still some industries out there that haven't really seen a direct impact on their business yet. The EIDL program, which is another loan program through the SBA, which is starting to catch up. There is more loan funds available for you. They've put more money in there. The SBA is just really slow and really poor at communicating. And then out of the blue, you'll get an email that says, hey, your account's been set up and you can go in there and request your loan amount. It sounds incredibly simple for something this big of a deal, but it's worth checking out. So if you need to borrow funds for things other than payroll and rent to keep your business going, and who wouldn't, here's some real inexpensive money with few strings attached. And there is a personal guarantee involved in that. I've been talking to folks in a number of countries, and there are similar programs in most nations. Not all of them have moved forward, so we can, Americans, hey, maybe it's not that bad. It has taken a long time for the programs to really kick in and get to everyone, but there are other places where their program is still a month away from being launched. So count our blessings there. And the word of the week, I kind of watch for words to see what changes and what's coming up more often. We had 6 weeks of the word was virtual, and now the new word is hybrid. So let's think about hybrid. I listened to a very wise man the other day say something that I thought was very absurd. He says, as a nation, we're somewhat forced to choose between medical death and economic death. And I thought, this is crazy. That's not true at all. That's an irrational assessment of what we have going on. To me, irrationality is taking an idea to the extreme. It is not a black or white situation. We're going to, die for lack of medical care or die from a poor economy. The fact is, we're going to always be somewhere in the middle. Life's not that black and white. So I react viscerally when people take an extreme position like that and say, hey, it's either or. You're saying this, that means the extreme. You can't run your life or run your business that way, and that's about as deep of advice as I can give you. Find the middle, find the truth that's in between all of the positions out there, because we have to move forward regardless of what people are telling you on social media or some video that you watched on YouTube. Use your brain. I think you will. That's why you're here. I'm sure you're looking and watching other stuff to get better informed about what you can do for your industry. So, all right. A little recap from last week, just to get you back into the frame of mind. We're going to work on our business today. Last week, we talked about operations, and I talked about the event production death spiral. Those are the reactive solutions we apply that actually tend to create more problems than they solve. And the more we apply them, the worse it actually gets. So go back and watch that again if you don't get it. Now is the time, really, to get back to the essence of what your business does and let go of how you do it, because how you do it is going to change. It's not going to change completely, but it's going to change significantly enough that it needs your attention. It needs your focused attention on how to redesign this. So The how we're going to do things is going to become a lot more clear when we know what it is that we're going to do. And today we're going to talk a little bit about how do you figure out what the what is. And that's what strategy is all about. We also talked about scalability and the levers of scalability. You know, in order to grow your business, you have to grow bits and pieces at a time. You can't just grow one piece and let the other pieces catch up. You know, business is a three-legged stool. It's sales, operations, and finance, and we need to keep all three legs pretty level. We can't outgrow one or the other because the company will come out of balance. Your processes won't be in sync, and you'll start to make some bad decisions and processes that will affect your ability to continue to grow and do business. So know your customer, know your cost, know your capacity. We want to know our customers so we stop over delivering. Matter of fact, if I could get people to quit over delivering, I could solve a whole lot of problems in our industry. You need to know your costs so that you can design profitable revenue. Revenue is not inherently profitable. Revenue is only profitable in context of your costs. So know your costs. And then you have to know your capacity, because our job is to grow beyond capacity. Okay? Capacity is not a limit. Capacity is a target that we're going to shoot past, and then we're going to set another target. And you need to know where it is, because as soon as you approach capacity, it's time to add more capacity in a scalable fashion. So, recap questions. There are two questions I wanted to go deeper into from last week. The first one is, what's the best answer you can give a client who has requested their deposit back when you don't have the funds to do so? We touched on this a lot the first couple of weeks. The best answer is always going to be an honest one. First of all, take all the steps. You have some work in progress that you've applied to the job, no matter how small, but you need to apply that to the job. Basically, give them a statement of what the balance of their project is. And then you have to honestly say, look, we don't have the funds to pay you, but here's what we can do instead. Okay? And you have options. You can apply the balance to the future job. I know the arguments, oh, we're never going to do this job again, blah, blah, blah. All you can do is tell them what their choices are. Apply the balance to a future job. Apply a premium to a future job. In other words, hey, you've got a $10,000 credit, but here's what I'm going to do for you. I'm going to give you $12,000 credit on a future job. Okay? Or you can give them a partial refund. Say, look, I can't give you $10,000. I don't have it. I can give you $2,000. And then we can be done. So come back to them with something, but give them choices. And again, you're going to have to make it clear. You're not alone. Chances are they're asking for the money back because they're in the same spot you are. They don't have the money to give somebody that they need to give it. So be honest, do the best that you can, give them some choices. And right now, that's really all we can do. Another question I want to talk a little bit more about is, if we're going to do part-time work with warehouse staff, because last week we talked about having a dynamic scheduling solution for warehouse staffing rather than a fixed hour staff, particularly when you're starting back up. You know, should those hours used by that warehouse staff now be billed towards a project? So we come in just a pepper project, we bill it towards a project, okay? As opposed to the old, it's an overhead cost and we're going to apply burden to all of the jobs. So yeah, the short answer is that sure, why wouldn't you? I mean, the information is there, the data is there, you can directly apply it. You should be tracking hours. I've said this for years. It's very difficult to get people to do that because of the way most of our operations are set up and the way most of our crew and staff assignments are set up. We're just throwing people at jobs and then we're pulling them away and sending them someplace else. And then we come back to this. It's very difficult for people to keep their hours. You say, how many hours did I spend working on a specific project? But other industries do it on a regular basis. So we could figure out how to do that and have a better understanding of this very important key performance indicator, which is utilization of your staff and your freelancers. So the arguments about we're too busy or our day is too dynamic to track project hours is really just an excuse for being not well organized and not being well led from a management position. So yes, in your new version of you, in your reboot model, why don't you make hour tracking and that kind of organization and focus part of who you are? So great question. Speaking of the next normal, let's talk about the strategy that we need to understand, or what strategy we need to understand in order to be effective in that. So much of what strategy is about thinking creatively. And if you think creatively, you can leverage your assets and skills for changing customer needs. If there's so many metaphors we can use about all of this. If I have a carpenter and I don't have any tools, what are they going to do? Well, they're probably going to make their own tools is what they're going to do. So they're going to figure out how to creatively solve the problem and bring the skills that they bring to a situation and apply it based on what they have. And this is what we need to do as well. Yeah, the carpenter would love to have not only her tools, okay, good tools, but if they have no tools, what are they going to do differently? And they're going to adapt. So I want to help you start thinking creatively, thinking strategically. So I'm going to go right into an exercise. So have a blank sheet of paper in front of you, something to write on. Have your keyboard handy, because I'm going to ask you to type a few things into the chat to get us all going here. And we're going to play a word game called disassociation. And what disassociation is all about is taking the words that are bouncing around in your head, the things that are keeping you up at night, okay, or the opportunities you wish you could capitalize on. We want to take those words and disassociate them with now, recast those words in such a way that we can use them creatively. So we want to get through the mind block of the word and find the essence of what the word means so that we can think creatively about it. This is a process. I use it all the time. Anytime I'm stuck on something, I use this process. That's why I've got whiteboards all over my office. It'll help you think more strategically. It'll help you get rid of all the tactical anchors and sunk costs and traditions and habits that are hanging you up, that's causing this word to take up too much of your brain space. I'm going to help you generate new ideas from current issues, opportunities. And so what I'm going to ask you to do is in the Zoom chat dialogue, and the question that we're going to be processing here is, what should our business become? Because that's the ultimate strategic question, strategic question. I want you to write down on your paper 8 single words that reflect the issues, and then share a couple of them in your chat. Think about the words that they have to be single words, the first things that come to your mind. There are no wrong answers here. When you're thinking about what your business should become, what are the words that are hanging you up and keeping you from moving forward? Write them down. These are the concerns, the issues, the opportunities you have that are affecting your business. These are the things that are in your way. We're going to call these the master words. Write them down so that you have them. Drop them into the chat. Okay. See what happens. Okay. Let's see how many words. And what we're going to find is that a lot of us have the same words. So drop some of those words in the chat. I'm going to stand here and I'm going to sip my coffee for just a moment. I'm going to encourage you that even if you've written down a phrase or something, figure out how to get it back to one word. Getting it back to one word will help you understand the essence of the issue, so it's much easier to separate. It's not always easy to get things down to one word, but you have to make the effort. So do your best. Try and find one word. Great stuff, guys. Fantastic. Good for you. All right, I knew you guys had it in you. Keep them coming. Keep doing this. Let me tell you what happens next. So hopefully what you have on your page is about 8 words. If you got 7, you got 10, it doesn't really matter. We're going to do the exercise the same way. Look at those words and notice that some of them are related. You know, I'm looking at the chat here. I'm seeing accountability, budgets, and uncertainty. Okay, those are 3 things that are related that have to do with leadership. Okay, I might put those things together. So find some master words that seem related. You might have some words that end up by themselves. Everybody's list is different, right? So see if you find some words related. And I'm going to walk you through an actual example of this in a little bit so you better understand it. But take a stab at there. If these seem to be, internal business process issues, maybe circle, this is a sales issue, this is marketing, personnel, find the 2 or 3 words that all fit together and group them. For each of the master words, then we're going to take and write 2 or more, 2 to 4, 3, 5 words that help describe why that first word is important. So remember when you took that series of words and you got it down to one issue, payroll, okay? Now you need some words that describe why payroll is an issue, okay? Our payroll is too high. We owe back pay. We have uncertainty about how many people that we need. We have some folks that we've been overpaying. We have some folks we've been underpaying. There's things in there that are making that an issue for you. Write them down, kind of group them around that word in that little group of words that are somehow related. And for each of your master words, you're going to add a couple more words that help you clarify that. And you're going to make a little bit of you're going to have a page. It's going to look like a cloud, a word cloud on this. And these are what we call the descriptor words. Now, we're not going to get through all of your words here. I'm going to keep going and help you start to understand how to actually apply this and get something out of it. And then when it's all done, we're going to look at all the words on our page, and you're going to find some words appear more than once. Some things are going to come up quite often. So we're going to start building word trios of words that are somehow strongly connected to each other. We're going to call these triplets. Needs to be 3 words, not 2, not 4. 3 is the number. That's what makes it a triplet. So find 3 words that somehow seem to be related. Again, there are no wrong groupings here. The purpose of this exercise is to get you as far away from those 8 master words that are sucking up your brain power. And now we're going to get it down to triplets of words that are 2 or 3 degrees removed from those master words. And these triplets are what we're going to work with to come up with some fresh ideas and think strategically. Then, looking at the triplets, and you should maybe have 3 triplets. And we're going to use those triplets to help drive business ideas. Now, I can't see your triplets. We can't see each other's triplets. You're going to have to take this exercise and do it offline, but let me show you what it looks like. Because again, I do this all the time. So here's one of my whiteboards. I did this exercise the other day. So what are the issues that my people are facing right now? What are the words that are coming up in all the interviews that I'm doing, all the conversations that I'm having? The reason I know hybrid is coming up because I can go back to the past 20 pages of my notebook to see how many times I wrote down hybrid. Okay, what are the words that you're using? So I went back over the past several weeks and I came up with virtual, cancel, deposit, rental, labor, overhead, payroll, shows, distancing, 9 words, and then I stopped. They just shot out of me as fast as I could write. And you'll see them over here. They're written in big letters in blue, and that's where I started. Okay? We start with those master words. Then I looked for the groupings. Okay, well, I grouped rental, labor, overhead, and payroll together because those are business processes. Those are business issue. And rental to me, of course, meant things like inventory and the costs of having and owning equipment and things like that. Shows and distancing went together because how are we going to do shows when we have to distance? And then virtual, I put off by itself. I put cancel and deposit together because these are terms and conditions, really an admin finance function side of the business that we have to create a policy for. So this was my grouping of these actual words. And then I said, the next step is to start adding words to describe why this is an issue. And I know many of you are hung up on virtual. You don't think you're in a virtual business. You can't see doing that kind of business, or you don't know how to do it, or you're scared to death that that's all that's ever going to be left. Whatever is hanging you up, write it down. So I wrote down my descriptors for what this master word virtual means. And I said, well, I'm thinking about streaming. I'm thinking about substitute. Is virtual really a substitute for an in-person meeting? Zoom has got to come up in all of this conversation. Is it a show? I mean, is helping somebody with a webinar or a webcast or an internal meeting, is that a show? Does that really count? Should we be doing that? And where is the value derived? I mean, how many of you have asked in the past week, how do you price virtual, right? So these are important things to consider. So you go through and do that for each one of the master words, and you get this nice sea of descriptors. Now we're going to build triplets. So I look at my list of all the descriptors that were spread all over this page in front of you, and I started grabbing them somewhat randomly, but somehow they felt like they went together. Skills and design and value. What I was thinking when I put those together, skills and the design seem to be fairly self-evident connection. Value is a lot of times we have trouble pricing that. So that might be a good triplet to process. Shows, substitute, and Zoom. Might want to process those three together because they seem very related. And availability, process, and retention, this has to do with people. A concern many of you have if you furloughed your staff, are you going to be able to get people back when you actually need them? If you go to a model where everybody's working part-time and dynamically scheduled like you would in a retail environment, am I going to have the people that I actually need to do the business that we've done? Will my customer get their favorite technician? So availability, process, and retention is a great triplet to process. So now I've got these triplets. I take a triplet and I start coming up with business ideas, just whatever comes to mind. And here, again, there are no bad ideas. Just write something down. Skills, design, value. We could pre-design virtual meeting formats and give people templates for depending on the kind of meeting that they have. Help them understand the potential of the tool. I was just on a webinar myself with Avixa, learning how I'm going to be presenting at a virtual event for them. And they gave me all sorts of ideas by pre-designing a virtual meeting format and saying, here's how you can use it in your presentation. Pricing, a value. How do you price the stuff? Why don't you price it by audience size? We have a bigger audience, we have a bigger screen, we have a bigger projector, we have a bigger sound system. Why wouldn't a bigger audience for a virtual event be more valuable than one for a smaller event? Is that the right answer? I don't know. The point is, I'm just going to write it down and I'm going to keep going. Using freelance designers for spec projects. How do I get the design and skills I need, but I don't have the resources to have these people full time? Oh, of course, I will use freelancers. We'll outsource, right? That's Tom's solution to everything. Are you in love with it? Doesn't matter. Is it an idea? Great, write it down. So you go through each one of these and write down ideas. I wrote down business ideas for shows, substitute, and Zoom. Can I do a Zoom meeting within a Zoom meeting? What is that going to look like? What can I do to enhance a package? Is there a kit of gear I could send to a customer who's working from their home office with the backdrop and the lighting that they need to look more professional in a meeting? That hopefully there's a bigger meeting that you're part of that you're helping with them. Do you have mad Zoom skills? We're going to live in a world where Zoom right now, and trust me, I've been on GoToMeeting. I had GoToMeeting for years, WebEx, and God forbid anybody who's having to use Teams right now to communicate. Zoom is the product right now. Compared to everything else we have to work with, in my personal opinion, I'd much rather be in the Zoom environment. If you're going to have to be in the Zoom environment, whether you're happy about it or not, developing some mad Zoom skills might be a really good idea right about now. Availability, process, retention, relating to personnel. Yeah, I've got to design a business with a minimum employee model. I've got to simplify or limit offerings so that we don't exceed the capacity of the crew and how soon or how far out we need to plan. How do I outsource effectively when there's either a shortage or a plethora of people on the marketplace? Do I want to do reverse auctions? Do I want to do postings? Again, these are all questions that need to be answered. Now, this exercise is not going to completely redesign your business. This exercise got you away from those 8 or 9 annoying words and got you thinking about possibilities. Okay, one good idea is worth considering 100 bad ideas. If you have to write down 100 of these business ideas to come up with one that you're really excited about, you're going to follow through with, it is absolutely worth it. So raise your hand, hit the raise hand button on your screen. Where is it? It's right bottom center of your screen. If you have at least one good idea triggered in your mind right now, just from doing this brief exercise, hit your raise hand button. Okay, and I couldn't be happier. All right. This is how you do it, folks. You got to get away from the things that have been holding you back. Find a way to open up your mind and do something else. I'm proud of you guys. So many of you got late. My screen's going nuts over here. Fantastic. Thank you so much for doing all of that. So that was fun. Let's learn a little theory. Thanks for playing that game. That was great. Right now, more than any time in your career, my career, is the opportunity to innovate. We need to innovate our businesses. What we've done in the past may not help us stand out in the future. That's the essence of strategy. Okay, why is somebody going to choose to work with you over someone else? That's strategy. If we continue to do the same thing, somebody else's strategy is going to make us look, well, not as clever, not as useful, not as relevant. If you want to innovate, talk to your customers. Start with your current customers, talk to your prospects, talk to new targets. These are the people that are going to help you understand what's going to be valuable for your market segment. And that's going to influence your strategy. So I'm going to share a little bit of content from Jumpstart Strategy from 2019. For those of you that were there, we did a lot of exercises like the one we just did. Really gets you out of your day-to-day brain and your tactical mind. You quit thinking about, your floor space in the warehouse, and you start thinking about why floor space is important. So we want to figure out what's the strategy that you need. Again, the exercise we just did, this quote speaks to it. I always like to start workshops with quotes. Traditions are group efforts to keep the unexpected from happening. As I talked about it last week and the week before, so much of what we do in terms of business models in our industry are traditions. They aren't best practices, they're just what everybody else does. And part of what I've been trying to do for the past 15, almost 20 years now is let's figure out what the best practice actually should be, because it's not necessarily something that grows out of what we're doing right now. It's something that should have been decided many, many years ago at a much less mature industry. Changing how we do business, when for the past 40 years we've grown from rental businesses to these service companies, it's really hard to undo all the things that we let stay the same way. Having said that, strategy, strategic planning. Many of you know that my original goal when becoming a business consultant was I was going to do strategic planning. I thought strategic planning was cool. I liked the idea of getting a bunch of people in a room and doing a bunch of silly exercises together and coming up with great ideas for their business. As an employee, being involved in strategic planning sessions with the owners or with the new company owners when our company was bought. I thought those were fantastic. I enjoyed the heck out of them because I like exercising that part of my brain. I know many of you do as well. But I've since come to understand that strategic planning is actually an oxymoron. And the strategic planning process that many of us have experienced over the years, I think is actually a little bit more destructive than it is productive or creative. See, here's the thing. Planning is about analysis, and we all plan. We plan all the time, right? We analyze what's around us and we make a plan. And I always say we make a plan so we can change it, right? Planning is about analysis. It's the response to what we think will happen. Oh, well, we think that the truck's going to show up late, so why don't we schedule the load in half an hour later? Okay, that's planning. Strategy is not about planning. Strategy is about synthesis. Strategy is what we want to happen. Okay? Therefore, strategic planning is engineering what we want to happen based on what we think is going to happen. Okay? So let me rant about something for a brief second here. Anybody that's done strategic planning probably did a SWOT analysis, and I've done hundreds of them. I've led them. I've participated in them. I'm sorry. I think SWOT analysis are really a waste of time in a strategy dialogue. Planning is about looking ahead. SWOT analysis are always about looking backwards. And let's face it, if you've ever done one, we've all had that moment when we realize that all of our strengths are weaknesses, all of our threats are opportunities, and vice versa. And if you try to develop a strength without a strategic purpose, you're actually wasting your time. If you're focused on a weakness that you can't change, it's just demoralizing. And most threats are distractions. Okay? Who cares what someone else might do? What are you going to do? Do something. Don't just do anything. Do something. So strategic planning is engineering what we want to happen based on what we will think happen. Now, the question now becomes, what is it you want to happen? And this is where a lot of leaders fail us because they've never told us. Okay? So the process I advocate about all of this is to figure out what is it that the leader, the owner, the visionary, the CEO of the company actually wants to happen. And if I took all the interviews I've ever done and all the business leaders I've ever worked with, and I asked them what their real goal is, I probably get about 6 goals, but these 4 will cover 90% of the responses. They want to be the biggest in their segment. I want to be the biggest company, or I want to be the best company. I want to be the most profitable company. I just want to be happy. Okay? And I actually get all of these in about equal amounts because most owner operators who run their own business, it's a lifestyle, they enjoy it, it provides for them. Most of them would rather just be happy. They don't care about being biggest. They really don't care who's the best. I'm happy, I enjoy my work. Most of us want to be profitable because profitable allows a lot of other things to happen. Being the best is a matter of pride. Awesome. I think being the best is great. Being the biggest is an intellectual challenge. It would be really fun to do the things, but what do you need to do to achieve one of these goals? Well, if you want to be the biggest, you're going to have to invest a lot of money. Okay? You spend enough money, you can be the biggest. If you want to be the best, you've got to accumulate the brains and acquire the talents to do the things that will help make you the best. If you want to be profitable, you have to learn how to take risks. The key to profit is not the business that you do, it's the business that you don't do. Most of the companies I work with who are not profitable have zero tolerance for risk. They don't like risk at all. They'll never turn down a piece of work. That's why they're not profitable. Being profitable requires you to take a lot of risk. And if you want to be happy, what do you need to do to build confidence? Okay? What is it that gets you up every day? What makes it fun for you? Are you doing the things to make sure that your confidence is being fed? Because that's what's going to let you be happy. And once you decide the commitment you're willing to make, that will tell us what goal you might reasonably want to achieve. Then the question becomes, what do you want to be along the way? Because anybody can grow a company, but by what means? Do you really want to do some of those things? I've always said, and I learned this from an elder, somebody older than me, that growing a business is not really hard. Growing a business and keeping your values is. So you can be anything you want, but once you put your values back into the mix, and this is what becomes important about vision. I've got a long story here. I'm not going to go into it right now, but I just want to go on to say that vision answers some very important questions. Okay? Vision answers why you're in business. Those are the goals I just described. How do you make money at it, which has to do with what business you're actually in, as opposed to why you're in business. Who are your customers, which I can't say enough times is critical to everything we do. And then what are the values you want to adhere to as an organization and as individuals going through this process? So what business are you really in? We have to go back and start with your customer. Your customer has needs and they have money. They're going to come to your business for goods and services, and you're going to give them something. But the value, the way you really make money, is what you get that's above and beyond the cost of the goods and services. Okay? How do I get more than what I paid for those things? Okay? And that's what business is all about. How do I take something that I bought for X and sell it for Y? I'd like to sell it for Z. How do I get from Y to Z? Right? That's what business is all about. How do you create a higher perception of value for what you do when, frankly, your menu of things that you do looks like everybody else? It looks like your competitor. Maybe not this competitor, but maybe that competitor or that competitor. There's not that many things new on the face of the earth for us to be extremely unique, which brings us to this discussion. Strategic advantages. The most successful companies leverage their innate or planned strategic advantage. And I'm an old Porter guy, Michael Porter. So anybody who's read Porter knows that there are really only 3 strategic advantages. Either you have a cost advantage, you have differentiation, or you have a focus or a niche advantage. Okay? If you have a cost advantage, then you have the ability to acquire customers because you can sell at a lower price or offer a lower price or give them more value for the same spend. You have leverage in your channel if you have a cost advantage. You have the value chain leverage. If you have a good cost advantage, you're probably going to buy at a better price, which is going to give you an advantage over your competitor. Cost advantage is extremely common in this business. It's not always well practiced. Many of you are striving for a cost advantage, but you haven't fulfilled the mandate of what that actually means. Maybe because you didn't realize what you were doing, or maybe because you think you're busy being differentiated. A differentiation strategic advantage has to do with the customer experience, the brand experience, and the approach. Yes, you still want to manage your costs. Costs are still important, but how do you derive additional value from the customer? Remember, going back over here, this perceived value, how do you take the goods plus services and get more money than somebody else? Okay? Being differentiated will help you do that. If you can give them a better experience, if you're Apple Computer, you're differentiated. People pay more money simply because it says Apple on it, right? And then the third strategic advantage, the third option, is a focus advantage. If you have a very specific customer, if you're in a niche, if you do one thing and you do it extremely well, if you control geography, okay, that can be your focus. That can be your advantage. And if you have that advantage, and that's what you need to leverage, then we need to put more energy into that. Some of you are market leaders in your region, but you keep seeing those jobs in Las Vegas or Florida or someplace else that you want to go, and you lose sight that your region, your control over this geography is actually your advantage. It's not that you can't go do a show in Vegas. I don't want to lose the advantage that I have in my region. So understanding what's important for your business model, what needs to be focused on, will affect and drive your entire strategic thinking. Now, here's a couple of examples. If you have a cost advantage, right? One way you might create value is to maintain low cost, but help the customer maximize their spending. So no, I don't want to ask the customer to spend less. I want them to get more for what they're spending, and my cost advantage lets me do that. Now, if you can get your customer to do that, your net margins are going to be higher than your competitor for the same spend, right? Or you could offer the same service for less money. You can go the other route, saying, hey, our costs are lower. I'm going to offer you a lower price. Yeah, I'm going to take a slightly lower margin, maybe, or maybe I'm going to take the same margin and offer it at a lower price because I'm so good at cost advantage. I can offer a lower price and make more money. Walmart's been doing this for years. Okay? Now, how do I derive value in the first scenario where I get people to spend the same amount of money but get more for it and I make more money? You're going to need a consultative selling process. So again, having the discussion about what it is you're trying to accomplish and what's really important, what's the strategic advantage you're going to leverage, is going to be critical to how you derive the value. Now, if differentiation is your strategic advantage. How are we going to get customer benefit out of this? So you have a unique approach, you have a unique solution, you have a unique brand image or an experience, okay? Then I'm going to have to put a lot of marketing effort into this, because uniqueness reduces competitive options, but people have to know you're unique and they have to see the comparison. They have to be able to see the differentiation in order for you to be differentiated. Okay, so we have to make a clear choice. Marketing is where we're going to spend a lot of our energy in our business strategy if we're going to focus on differentiation. And differentiated company can charge more money to do the same thing as an undifferentiated company. So who wouldn't want to do that if you have the fortitude to differentiate? All right. Now, moving on to if focus, if you're a niche, what's the benefit of that? If your focus is geography or the network of people that you deal with, the service that you provide, you're the only people who do this thing, or you do something that's very specialized, okay, then what you might want to do is develop help your customer have the confidence to choose you over somebody who includes that same service or geography in a much broader fashion. Why would I go to a specialist if there's a generalist who can do that and 5 other things? How many times does a customer say, well, I just want to write one check, right? It's very hard to leverage a focus strategy to a customer who only wants to write one check. So you need to find customers that are willing to write several checks so that they can get the best in each category. Okay? Now, knowing which one of these things, and you've done all of these things independently of each other in different times and different periods of your business. But you need, if you want to be successful long-term and achieve all your goals, you're going to have to pick one lane and stay in it. It doesn't need that a cost-focused company doesn't need to be differentiated. It does. A cost-focused company can also be a little bit niche-y, but we're going to put our strategic energy into making sure that we're always leveraging our cost basis to get to our goal. And once you've made these decisions, okay, you have to tell somebody. You have to tell the team. Okay? You have to tell them, why do we do what we do? Who do we want to care about it? Why should they care about it? What makes this important? What do we collectively have to do to make it work? And what can you do to help? And then you always have to tell them when we will say no. And I'm in offices. Well, I used to be in offices all the time back when we traveled, several weeks ago. I don't hear enough no. I hear, how big is the job? Yeah, we need to get it. There's no strategy at all in that approach. You need to know when to say no. When the margin's too low, when they don't appreciate your differentiation, when they're outside of your skill set, these are times that you need to say no. Because if you don't, you will get off track. You'll start trying to be all things to all people. Your people will have a mixed message. They won't know how to make decisions. You'll start scheduling people to show up even when there's no work, because there might be work because we have no idea what we're supposed to do next. All of these are symptoms of a lack of strategy. And right now, you've got a clean slate. It doesn't matter what your strategy's been in the past. You have a do-over. You can reboot your business any way that you want. You may not even use all the assets and resources that you've had that you've depended upon for years. You may abandon a whole lot of how right now because you have a new what that you're going after. Wow, that could be exciting. But it's easy to get off track. Okay? The 3 things that you have to remember when you're trying to execute a strategy is you got to have well-defined customers, right? You need to have the right tools to do the work that you've promised to do, and you have to have very clear goals about where you're going. If you do not define your customers, you're going to waste a lot of energy. You're going to chase business, you're going to write proposals, you're going to do quotes for things that businesses you have no business doing or that you're not going to win, or the customer doesn't understand why they should do business with you. You're going to waste a lot of time. If you don't have the right tools and the right resources to do what you're trying to accomplish, then you're not going to have the means to get the work done. In other words, you're going to flounder. a little bit. If you don't have clear goals, you're going to wander. Oh, goodness, we're an LED company. Oh, no, actually, we're a projection company. Oh, no, we're a general services company. Nah, actually, we're a creative graphic company. You're all over the map because you haven't decided where you're going. It's not that you have to eliminate all of those things. They exist to support something else. What is the thing that you're trying to support? And that's where intentional success comes from. When you do the things because you have a plan and you're trying to get somewhere and they're all connected. So, well, I enjoyed talking about strategy more this week than I was expecting. You'd think that this was an operations topic. Get your questions ready. I'm going to start answering questions here in just a minute. I hope you enjoyed the strategic respite. Next week, we're going to talk about management, and we're going to talk about managing in the new normal. A lot of you are down to a management team of people. I've talked to some of you. I realize that if you had a job come in right now, you're going to have to do stuff you haven't done for years, like, well, maybe lift or push a road box or push a button. So there's a lot of things that we need to understand about management and how we're going to manage going forward as we rebuild our businesses, reboot our businesses. So what do you do when you have the assets of a much larger company, but you're having to start over? That's our management lesson for next week. Q&A coming. Keep the questions coming in. Thank you. So again, accepting applications for 3 different coaching groups. If you don't understand or you want to have a conversation about it, just ping me, shoot me an email. We'll set up a call. I'll explain it to you. We'll see what's right for you, or see if there's another way to get what you're trying to get out of me. That free phone call, if you haven't taken advantage of it, please do. I'm still happy to give those. Business Survival Exchange is on Friday. Go register for that. Get onto those things. Get more value out of today by investing some more time on Friday. There'll be a time when we don't have time for all of this stuff because we're going to be so busy with work again. But right now is when we have time. Take advantage of it, or work on your sourdough bread starter. Webinar recording, as always, will be on the page here in the next hour or two. Final thought before questions. The key to developing and executing a new strategy is to become comfortable with letting the old one go. Say goodbye to it. Okay, it served you well. It may be time for something new. Okay, now let's do some questions. Let me scroll back up here to the top of the questions and see what we have going. Question. Okay, this is a good question. How do I address sales tax if I'm giving a client a single price that doesn't break out equipment and labor? We currently collect for both equipment and labor, but everything is itemized. I know many companies that consider their equipment and services to be lumped together as a service and non-taxable. Well, obviously, the tax calculation is going to be relative to your market. Whatever your taxing entities are. And how your business is set up, whether labor is taxable or not, equipment is taxable or not. If you're going to present a bundled price, I consider it a best practice to always show the tax number separately, so people need to know, because you will have clients that are tax exempt, or they will suddenly decide they're tax exempt when they see the tax number. So do show the tax number separately. You don't have to show the percentage. You say this is of the items that are taxable in the jurisdictions that we're in, here's your tax. Can you break it down for me? Said, I'd be happy to break that down for you, but your job is going to change. Let's get the job awarded, and we can look into all the details as much as you want. But this right now, based on what you've asked for, is the taxable amount. So don't get hung up on how you've done things in the past, where everything is transparent and people can see all of your calculations and work backwards. Unless you have a control buyer and unless you're conducting a transaction, try and get away from a situation where the customer could reverse engineer your numbers for you. That's not how a service business does things. Thanks, good question. Let's see. We had a speech competition to manage, 6 nights, training all the presenters according to the event. Only our text was working. This is somebody's event. Um, Good. So they've had one of our techs working. They learned what customers need, the AV guys to look after. Yeah, do the events, figure out the pricing, but just do them. What you'll learn from them will tell you how to create value for the next customer. Go after that. If I don't want forgiveness on my PPP, I don't have to report how I use the funds. I just have to pay the loan back over the 2-year term. That's my understanding. That is my understanding as well. I don't know why you wouldn't want the forgiveness. You are obligated for some of the employment taxes if you do pass that money through. But if you didn't want forgiveness, then I would go look at the EIDL loan, and you can use the EIDL loan to pay back your PPP loan. There's lots of resources out there if you're in the US. Are you seeing a trend of live event companies pursuing installation projects? Yeah. Do you think it's a good idea? Right now, installation projects are still happening. As a matter of fact, they're, for organizations that can't go back into their facilities right now, it's a great time to get some of that work done. By all means, it is a different business. The margins are different. However, and many of my clients do installations as well as production, rental, staging. If one of your regular customers, an event customer, comes to you for an installation, is they're coming to you because they trust you and they know you're an expert at this stuff. It also means that you can get probably better margins than an installation or integration contractor or even a design build company can get, because the value is you, right? So there are good margins to be made. Obviously, the margins are nowhere near what we get on the rental side of the world or the production side of the world. But it's not unusual to get, for a customer coming to you for work, getting 20% margin on the entire job would be minimal. You can certainly get 30%, even higher than that. So it is definitely worth pursuing. It'll keep a few people busy. You'll be able to buy some product, keep your product numbers up, and it's a nice diversion. And right now, the work environments are probably easier than what we normally see with all the trades on top of each other. So, yeah, it's worth pursuing. Integration is not my favorite business in the world. I don't find it extremely interesting. I do find groceries interesting. I like groceries. I eat them all day long. I'd do an installation right now, believe me. So yeah, definitely pursue that if you have that opportunity. Comment question here. Our team doesn't see a place where we can fit in with a totally virtual event. Should consulting to answer questions and guide our clients to various virtual platforms free of charge to show goodwill be a good idea to our existing clients and trying to get through all of this? Okay. Your team doesn't see where you fit in. Your team is not thinking very creatively. You need to think more creatively. I guarantee you fit in. And not just because I know who asked the question. Everybody on this call has a place in virtual events. The way to figure out what is there is to do some free consulting, do some pro bono work, help somebody out, research something for them. You'll find places to add value as soon as you get involved in it and start looking at it. You will see all the ways it could be done better with your knowledge, experience, and expertise and your tools. So, but yes, by all means, don't let your team hold you back. You're the business owner, they are not. Okay? Use your vision to drive you forward, not their fears to hold you back. I'm sure they meant well, but you need to find a way to find the positive outcome and what's in front of you. And right now, you're probably the only person who can do that for you if your team is against that. Let's see. How do you deal with another AV equipment rental company that will not return a deposit because the event was canceled due to COVID-19, other than the online shaming? If somebody owed me money, I'd give them a deposit. The event is canceled, and I would force them into the situation that I talked about earlier, that earlier question. Give me the alternatives. Okay. Honestly, if somebody's avoiding you and they're dodging you, that's because they don't have the money. Okay. they need to come back to you and say, look, we don't have the money. Here's what I can do instead. So help them, maybe prod them with that leading question. If you can't pay us back, what can you do instead? And see where that takes you. The fact of the matter is, a lot of people are hosed. And for most of your businesses, as much as it'd be nice to have that money, if you're trying to get the money back on principal, this is probably not the right time to apply principal. Okay? This is not the right time to burn another bridge or call somebody out, which you acknowledge. So I wouldn't recommend doing that. We're not going to shame anybody. But we can help them make a better defense on why they're taking that position. You know, I've had several calls. I had another call earlier this week. They couldn't even get the customer to say, hey, I'll send you $100 a month. I mean, tell us anything. Give us anything at all. And sometimes we're going to have to be very explicit about what we're asking them to do, because they assume you just want it all. No, I just want something. You know, I'd like you acknowledge the fact that you owe me money. And if you can't do anything about it, tell me what you can do instead. Maybe there's a trade out you can do. Maybe there's future work you can apply it to. So thank you for asking that. How do you push a virtual event when the company hasn't been thinking about it for a big event? I'll put my sales hat on it. I don't push anything. Right? A virtual event is a solution, right? They need to have the problem that warrants it. Okay? So if they're thinking about doing a big event, some portion of that would be virtual. Hello, word of the week, hybrid, right? I think many of our events are going to become hybrid events going forward. Long after the pandemic is solved, there's going to be a hybrid component to what we do. Just like all the people who are working from home, a lot of them don't want to go back to the office if they can get their work done from home. So there's a lot of things that we've had a taste of that are going to change in our industry and business in general. So we don't push virtual event, but it is a solution that may meet their needs. And it may be, hey, have you considered this? Would you look at the capabilities? Can we show you what it might do for you? And you can see if it applies. To me, that's not pushing, that's helping, that's offering to educate. Okay. Oh, okay, I'm going to read this and I'm going to disagree. So sorry, but you put it up here. Can we agree to never use the word virtual? It means lesser. Use online streaming, live stream, digital component, web video are so much better. Yeah, great. That's your opinion. If my customers are saying virtual, I'm going to say virtual. That's all there is to it. Virtual is the word. You can package what you do any way that you want, and I don't disagree with any of those alternatives. Just like somebody who sent me a note saying, never say the new normal again. It's like, sorry, I'm going to say the new normal. I like saying the next normal because I think it's more interesting, but you can't tell people what to call stuff, okay? Particularly customers. Let them call it whatever they want to call it, right? That's the last thing we need to be hung up on right now. Are virtual events going to damage our business long term? No, virtual events are your business long term. Let's reframe that. Let's look at it differently. If virtual events are not your skill set, get some or use a skill set to do something else. So we're going to have less demand for some of the things that we do. Now, eventually that demand will be replaced by volume. You know, for the next year and a half, we're going to have less demand for full production event staging in a ballroom. Okay. One day, the smaller version of that, there will be so much of it will more than supplant what we used to do. Our business is going to change. Virtual is going to be a part of it. I think it's going to be a component. Right now, it's our friend because it's 80% of the discussions that are going on out there are related to some sort of virtual. And it's time to get on the bandwagon and figure out how you can use that to help keep your business going and position you for the work that's going to come afterwards, which will be the hybrid. All right. Let's see. Another question. What are your thoughts on business capitalists wanting to purchase rental companies that are under strain, hoping to capitalize when things get back to normal? Should an owner take an offer if it's offered? Okay. This is generally because it's very difficult to sell an AV rental company. Well, selling an AV rental company is hard. One, because most of us overvalue it. Um, so this is an emotional question. I talk to a lot of business owners. Um, some of you are my age and older, and you're tired. Um, some of you are exhausted, and the last thing you wanted to do was have to rebuild your company, well, again, and probably from farther behind than you've ever been before. If somebody came and offered you something that got you out of the business, maybe covered your debt, um, maybe even gave you a salary for a year or two, yeah, you might want to take a look at that and take that. Are these buyers taking advantage of it? Yeah, but all businesses take advantage of opportunity. That's what they do. You can choose to sell your company or not. Um, if you wait 2 or 3 years, would you be worth more? Yeah, probably, but we've got some work to do to be worth more. So there are capital, there's a venture capital out there. I imagine there's going to be a little bit of this going on. I've had a few conversations with folks. Surprisingly, these are people that are betting on the come, and the valuations are higher than what I would expect them to be right now. If I look at, if I randomly picked anybody off the attendee list here and look at your business, based on the past 2 months, you're not worth anything. Based on the past 2 years, you're probably worth something. Anybody who's buying companies right now knows that you're going to be worth something again, and that's really what they're buying. Any acquisition is about future earnings. That's all the investors thinks about. They don't care what you did in the past. They care what you're going to do in the future, or what they're going to do with you in the future. So if you're well positioned in a marketplace, if you've got good geography, if you've got good bones, if you've got good brand, you have value in your business, probably more than you realize right now because you have no revenue. But your future earnings potential is probably sealed because of the market position that you have. When the market comes back, you're in the middle of it. So there are companies out there that have value, and the few deals that I've seen here recently were surprisingly higher value than I was expected given the current state of our business. So not all investors are charlatans. Not all investors are trying to steal companies. There are certainly people out there who are taking advantage of things, but most business money is managed by business people who are surprisingly practical and look at the dollars, and they have very little. There's not a lot of wiggle room for guessing in what they do. So if there's potential in your business, then you have value. If there's no potential, they probably wouldn't make you an offer, even if it was a super cheap price. So we'll see what happens over the, certainly as the economy starts to come back around the world, what consolidation there might be in the industry. I don't know. It's kind of pointless to speculate because right now we all have enough on our plate to deal with. If you want to be bought out one day, then you need to do all the stuff I've been talking about for the past 9 weeks and get your business rebuilt, become relevant, and be the company that's rebooted without all the baggage of the past, so that you can show some beautiful financials, high profitability, high scalability, much lower overhead than you've been running in the past. Yeah, there's a lot packed into that question. I think that may be a discussion in one of these upcoming webinars. So thank you for that. All right. Well, here's where we're at. We've had a nice conversation here today. The questions have tapered off. I'll prattle on here for a second or two in case another question pops up. But I'm ready to say, hey, we will end this one earlier since we started a little bit earlier. Thank you guys for all of the chat, all the questions you put in here. God, this is going to be so much fun to go through. I'm very proud of you. I'm very proud of all the things that you're getting out of this. I'm grateful for the fact that you're still with me and you're sending me notes and appreciation, and you are more than welcome. It's my honor to be able to do this for you. I just want you to get something out of it and make some changes and do the things that you need to do for your business and for your livelihood so that we can keep on doing this, because I'm not getting out of the show business. I hope you aren't either. So with that, thank you guys for being here today. I'll get the recording up. We will see you next week. Get your calls with me scheduled, and let's keep going. Be well, be safe. Cheers.